So, I finally got around to seeing the Netflix live-action Avatar series. I don't have an Avatar shirt, so I'm just gonna have to wear this. So I should probably establish, what do I think of the Avatar cartoon? Well, I saw the cartoon 12 years ago. I actually got to it a little later than most people. I heard that the Legend of Korra series was coming out. I was like, oh, they're making a sequel to that Avatar cartoon. I should check that Avatar cartoon out. I hear it's pretty good. I was, let's see, I think it was 2012. I was 18 at the time. Wow. So I watched the show for the first time when I was 18. The whole show was already done, so I was able to binge it all. Fell in love with it right away. Extremely entertaining, beautifully animated, hilarious show, wonderful characters, wonderful villains, and it was just great. I just loved it so much. My brother watched it with me. We had a great time watching it. Then I haven't watched it again since. I know some people love to rewatch it over and over. Maybe if I had a group of friends to rewatch it with, I would. I'm sorry, my head itches a lot today. I only watched it the one time, but I still remember it. I remember it, what a good time I had. I've actually even picked up, like, several of the comics, like, The Promise, The Search, The Rift. I'd like to get some more. So I really, really love the cartoon and just the world of Avatar, and the live-action movie is horrible. We all know why it's horrible. So now this show comes out, and when I first heard they were making an Avatar show for Nickelodeon, I was like, oh, a sequel series. So we're going to see, like, an earthbending Avatar now, right? And they were like, no, it's a remake of the Last Airbender story. I was like, well, what's the point of that? Like, why? And they're like, well, the original creators are helping with it. I was like, all right, maybe we'll see something. Then I heard the original creators stepped away, and I was like, oh boy. And then I saw the trailer. I have my trailer reaction on this channel, and I was like, oh, it's a good trailer. Well, I guess we'll see how it goes. And then when it came out, I heard people saying, oh, it's awful. Oh, it's lame. There's YouTube thumbnails of videos I haven't watched yet that are like, Avatar remake, what went wrong? And all of this. I'm like, oh man, this is going to be lame. So I finally got around to seeing it. I enjoyed it a lot, actually. So I was very surprised. Maybe, I think there are two reasons I enjoyed it a lot. One is I went in expecting it to be bad and was pleasantly surprised. And two, I'm still kind of fresh off my disappointment with the Percy Jackson show. This is better than the Percy Jackson show, and it hurts me that it is, because I wanted the Percy Jackson show to be great, and I was disappointed. And then I go into this thinking it's going to be lame, and I'm, like, happily surprised. So I'm like, oh, wow, I'm actually having fun watching this. Obviously it's nowhere near as good as the cartoon. It was never gonna be. But for what it was, I had fun with it. I had a pretty good time with it. I was pulled in pretty fast, because the first episode... So it opens differently than how the cartoon did. The cartoon opens just with Katara and Sokka finding Aang frozen. But this series starts with showing how he got frozen, whereas in the other series that was revealed later on. It just opens with Aang at the Southern Air Temple before he gets frozen. I was like, oh, you're going to open with that. And at first I thought, oh, that's a little weird, because, there's this really great episode of the cartoon that shows both Aang and Zuko's backstories together, and it works really well, and it shows you, like, how similar those two characters are. So I was like, oh, well, I think that's kind of a missed opportunity here. But then it made up for it, because they actually show the Battle of the Southern Air Temple, which we didn't see in the cartoon, because it's brutal. Like, so many airbenders died. Obviously, they're not going to show that in a cartoon. But here, they actually showed it. When it started, I was like, oh my god, are you actually going to show the Battle of the Southern Air Temple? I was like, please do. And then they did. And I was like, oh my god, hell yeah. And it goes pretty hard. They show, like, people getting burned to death and stuff. I was like, holy crap. I see what, the creators were saying when they said they were going to make this more Game of Thrones-like, which at first I thought was a stupid thing to say. I'm like, Avatar has nothing to do with Game of Thrones, and now I think they just meant they were going to make it a little darker. It's like, you could have just said you're going to make it a little darker. Why must we compare everything to Game of Thrones? This is nothing like Game of Thrones. So I loved that we got that, and so that pulled me in pretty quick. And honestly, one of the big things this show has going for it is there's so much action. There's action every episode, there's a lot of it. It's this great mix of practical fighting with, obviously, the bending has to be CGI, but the bending looks good. So I was really happy with the action. I was happy we got so much of it. And the effects looked good, I thought. And the look of the world looks really good. It just... Like, I love everyone's outfits look straight out of the cartoon. The environments look straight out of the cartoon. When they show the creatures, obviously they're not going to show creatures as much here as in the cartoon because, you know, animation is kind of the perfect way to show this story. You know, because then you can have the comedy work better, and you can have the bending be crazy, and you can have all the animals and environments be crazy. But I think this is a decent enough effort. When they do show like CGI creatures in this, they look straight out of the cartoon. I thought, like, I'll just say pretty quick, we see some spirits in this, and they look good. But we see some of the hybrid animals, though not a lot, but we see some, and they look good. Like, I thought everything looked pretty good, honestly. So I like the look of the show. I really enjoyed the action of the show, really appreciated it. And I appreciate the length, too. Like, 8 episodes, I know, 8 episodes isn't a lot, but each episode was like 40 minutes to an hour long. So they're twice as long as the damn Percy Jackson episodes. Each episode felt like a good length, I thought. And if you think about it, the cartoon was like 22-minute episodes. So these 8 episodes of this show are like equal to like the length of 16 episodes of the cartoon. The cartoon had like 24 episodes per season, so it's not too far off. You get like 2/3 of the content, I would say. Though there are, obviously there are some problems because because the cartoon has so many episodes, they're able to like discover more as the season goes on, whereas here in this show it feels like you know, they just have the characters kind of tell you up front everything that's going on, but not every single thing. Like, it's not as bad as, I'm going to compare this to Percy Jackson a lot, just a heads up. It's not as bad as Percy Jackson, because Percy Jackson in the fucking show would tell you every single thing that is going to happen before it happened, and it was infuriating. Like, walk up to the Hotel Lotus, oh, let me tell you exactly what this hotel is, and exactly how it works, and exactly who's here. Oh, let's Madame M's garden, let me tell you exactly where we are and exactly who we're about to encounter. It was so stupid. Like, if this show was like that, then when they went to the forest spirits like lair, they would have immediately stopped and gone, these trees are burned down. Well, this is clearly the forest spirit's lair, and the forest spirit has clearly been corrupted because firebenders have clearly gone through. No, they don't do that. They let a moment breathe. They react to the area they're in, and they go talk to people in the town and learn information through that, and then they go to the spirit realm and learn more information through that. So it's better. There is still a lot more exposition in this than there was in the cartoon, but it's not nearly as bad as it was in the Percy Jackson show. So I was relieved by that because I'm fresh off the Percy Jackson show, and I'm currently recording a full review of the Percy Jackson show, so that show is very much in my mind. So I do think that show has highly affected my enjoyment of this show, so you should probably take that into account. As for whether I would recommend this, I'd say check out the first episode. If it doesn't do anything for you, you're not going to like the show. But if you really dig the first episode, I think, you know, you might want to keep going. Because I dug the first episode and I kept going, and, well, I was going to keep going anyway to make this video, but I was glad I kept going. So that's how I felt watching this. Now, it's not perfect. There are flaws. There's some stuff, and there's a couple of really weird things that I found annoying, but yeah, so I'll talk about that. I'm gonna try to avoid heavy spoilers first, even though I'm pretty sure we've all seen the cartoon. But one thing I miss is, like, the little airball spinning technique Aang does in the cartoon that he invented himself. We don't get that here. We get him riding the airball, but I miss the little... It would have been fun to see. I wish we'd had that. But unfortunately, we don't have that. Katara's bending kind of progresses a little faster than feels natural. Like, I know she's learning from the scroll, and they try to help it along. Like, they don't just ignore it. They give her reasons. They're like, oh, Aang teaches her something to help her out, like teaches her how energy works, and then she learns techniques from the scroll, and then later, another guy, I'm not going to spoil it, teaches her about focusing herself and like her emotions in order to help her bending work better. So I appreciated stuff like that. But then in one episode, she can suddenly out of nowhere ice bend. And I'm like, I always thought ice bending was more advanced than typical water bending. I would have at least liked a scene where we see her figure out how to do that. I think that would have been really cool if we just saw her figure it out. But we don't get that, unfortunately. Some people said the acting in this wasn't good. I thought it was fine. I think the guy playing Iroh is doing really good. Also, in this show, we actually get Azula and what's his name? Ozai. We get Azula and Ozai scenes, and at first I was like, it feels a little early for that. But when I actually saw the scenes, I was like, oh, these are great. The guy playing Ozai is great. The girl playing Azula is great. I'm happy to see more of them in the next season. Like, the guy playing Ozai has that intimidation and that evil to him, but he feels a little more complex. Like, they're doing things a little differently than the cartoon did. And you know what? In some ways, I appreciate that, because the cartoon is perfect. You're not going to improve on that. And in fact, it's pointless to remake it. So if you're going to remake it, maybe try some things differently. You might as well. And some of you might be thinking, well, that's hypocritical. You got mad when the Percy Jackson show made changes. I see your point, but keep in mind, we don't have a good visual adaptation of Percy Jackson. We have the books, which are fantastic, but I would really like to see Percy Jackson come to life on the screen with all the epicness from the books brought to the screen. I just want to see that. With Avatar, we have that. The animated show is already that story coming to life. So people are like, oh, animation isn't coming to life. Oh, shut up. Animation is a wonderful, wonderful medium. It's a gorgeous medium, and it allows for so much stuff you can't do in live action. Animation is wonderful. So that's my point. I hope you understand. Like, I feel like Avatar has already come to life, so if you're going to try to do it again, you might as well do it a little differently. With Percy Jackson, I want to see it come to life, and I still haven't seen it come to life, and that's what bums me out about it. But yeah, like, I liked that Ozai, you could kind of, I feel like there were some scenes between him and Zuko, or with him talking about Zuko, where you could see that he wanted his son to succeed. Like, I felt like there were scenes where he legitimately wanted his son to succeed, but he's still a harsh asshole. Like, he's horrible. At the end of the day, he'll choose power over his son for sure. But I feel like there's a part of him that's like, I would at least like if Zuko could succeed and end up like me. You know, I would like that. You know, I got that vibe from him, and I enjoyed that. I also enjoyed seeing his dynamic with Azula. Like, you can see how Azula ended up how she was, with how he constantly manipulates her and constantly turns his children against each other and constantly just makes it a competition. And also they address, like, what Azula's even been doing, you know, before she goes out on her journey in season 2. Like, he uses her to root out traitors in the Fire Nation. And again, that's a cool thing that adds to the world. There are people in the Fire Nation who hate Ozai and want to get rid of him. You know, it makes the world, I think, feel more diverse and alive, and, you know, it builds on the world. And, you know, that it's a good, like, thing for, like, yeah, the firebenders aren't just a bunch of evil, like, sheep, like, following whatever Ozai says. There are people who think for themselves and don't want the stuff he's doing. So, you know, adding stuff like that, I was like, cool, I like that. Another thing I really like in this show is how they talk about war. Like, they talk about the sacrifices of war and the hard choices of war, I think, more than the cartoon did. And, like, the cartoon did bring it up here and there. But this, I think, goes into it a little more. It's an interesting new dynamic. I feel like they replaced a lot of the comedy with that. That was something I really loved in the cartoon, was how funny it was. I think I laughed every episode of the cartoon. Like, I just loved it so much. It was so funny. So many times I laughed watching the cartoon. This doesn't have that as much, but there were, I want to say, maybe 4 jokes, 5 jokes maybe, that did legitimately make me laugh. Oh, I forgot to mention when I was talking about everyone's acting, unfortunately, the one actor I wasn't really feeling is the kid playing Zuko. I don't think there's anything wrong with his look or anything, although the makeup on the eye could be better. Like, it's the right shape and everything, but I'd like it to bulge out a little. Like, in the cartoon, I feel like it looked like it was bulging out. It looked like his eye was, like, a little closed by it. Like, you know, it made it feel more like a scar. Here it looks like makeup. So, you know. But yeah, unfortunately, Zuko's performance in this felt pretty whiny. You know, in the cartoon, I felt like Zuko could command authority if he wanted to. But in this, I just felt like every time Zuko was trying to command authority, it sounded like he was whining and had no control. Like, we need to get the Avatar! I need to find the Avatar! They're like, all right, we're gonna send men to this location. No! I'll go myself! Like, I felt like it sounded kind of like that. I don't know if it's the actor's fault or the director's fault. I don't know who. So, you know, I'm not gonna blame anyone in particular. Is there anything else I can say without spoilers? I have some notes here. That's what I'm looking down on, because I don't have the world's best memory. That's a spoiler. That's a spoiler. That's a spoiler. Okay, I think I might have run out of things I can say without spoilers. But yeah, at the end of the day, I thought this show was pretty fun. I'm really curious what my friend Shane thinks. You guys know him as Zaggard, because he's a huge Last Airbender fan. So I kind of wish I could have watched it with him and then had him here now, but, you know, he's busy doing his thing, I'm busy doing my thing. Maybe next time we stream, we'll talk about it. So check out our streams. But, yeah, overall, I had a good time with this. I was pleasantly surprised by it. I'm sure I'm in the minority saying that, but, you know, if you're like me and you enjoyed it, let me know. It'd be nice not to feel alone, just like when people who didn't like the Percy Jackson show told me in the comments, yeah, I didn't like it either. I was like, good. Now, yeah, I feel less alone now. But if you didn't like it, tell me why. Like, I do want to hear why. Is it because, like, you wanted it to be more like the show? I get that. Like the cartoon, I get that. Or did they leave out, like, one of your favorite moments in the cartoon? Like, is that why, like, you're not happy with it? Or, like, what was it, the acting? I hear people criticizing the acting. I thought it was fine for the most part. But yeah, like, just tell me, what did you think? If you didn't like it, tell me why. If you did like it, tell me, and you can tell me why for that too. I'm always curious what other people think. Like sometimes people say things that make me think differently about stuff. There were some episodes of my Percy Jackson vlogs where they were like, oh dude, you missed this thing, and this does explain. Sorry. And this does explain that. And I was like, oh, yeah, damn it. I can't believe I missed that. So yeah, feel free to let me know. But, yeah, okay. I'm going to go into spoilers now. 3, 2, 1, go. So, one of my biggest problems with this show is the Forest Spirit episode. Like, the episodes before that, I thought things flowed pretty well. Like, in the Omashu episode, they merged the Omashu storyline with the Mechanist storyline and also the Jet storyline. And I was like, you're going to do all 3 of those? That feels very sudden, but yeah, I guess you only have 8 episodes. But I actually thought the way they merged them together flowed pretty well. And then the following episode mixes the Boomy storyline with the Iroh getting captured storyline and the Secret Tunnel storyline. And again, I thought it still flowed pretty well. They changed up Boomy's character a little bit. They made him like a lot more cynical. Like he's still got his goofy attitude, but there's also a cynicalness to him because he's been alive throughout this whole war for so long, and because he's had to make hard decisions constantly, and now he wants Aang to get used to making hard decisions. I don't think it was quite like that in the cartoon. I think it was different. But, I didn't mind it here because I was like, I actually kind of like the idea of Aang having to remind an old friend of his old lightheartedness that he doesn't have as much anymore. I was like, that actually is a pretty cute idea. I like that. Then, in the secret tunnel storyline, they obviously cut it way down, but they did still have the musicians for like a very brief moment, and they did say secret tunnel. So I was like, okay. Up until they said that, I was like, you gotta say secret tunnel, and then they finally did. I was like, yes, they did it. But if I recall correctly, I think the cartoon used the secret tunnel episode as a way to kind of start to build at Aang and Katara's possible romance. But obviously, Aang's not even in the tunnel in this one, so they don't do that. Instead, they kind of do it to strengthen Sokka and Katara's bond. And I thought that was fine for what it is. Again, it's something different. I didn't have a big problem with it. But yeah, what I did have a big problem with was the goddamn Spirit Forest episode. Because when they get into the Spirit Forest, if you know the cartoon, Aang goes, he discovers that he needs to be the bridge between the human world and the spirit world. He finds that the forest spirit has been corrupted because of what the Fire Nation did, and he is eventually able to get it to turn back into its true form, which is that of a panda, and help it move on to its new future. In this, though, they show up at the spirit world, and they encounter the Spirit of Knowledge, whose name escapes me, the big owl, and I'm like, well, it's way too early to be showing him, but okay. But the CGI is great, though. At least there's that. And then they encounter the forest spirit. I'm like, okay, here we go. And then they have some new stuff. They have... I don't remember if this was in the cartoon, but they have Sokka and Katara confronting things that they're afraid of, things that they're insecure about. And I actually kind of thought that was a bit interesting. I know the Katara mother reveal happens in Season 3. Instead, they show it here. But, it is character development. It does add to their characters, so that's totally fine. But then what I didn't like at all, a few things, was Ko the Face Stealer shows up. And instead of being a guy, they've completely changed how he works. In the cartoon, it was if you showed any emotion, you would give Ko the opportunity to steal your face instantly. They don't have that here. It's very clear that they don't have that here because Aang shows several emotions while talking to him. And it bums me out because Ko looks so good in this episode. He looks perfect. I loved that he was creepy. He looked straight out of the cartoon. I loved it so much. I liked the face changes and the noises. It was all creepy and unsettling. It was so good. But I hated how they changed so much of his lore. That's what I didn't like. Like, now instead of taking your face instantly if you show any emotion, which if you ask me is extremely threatening and extremely scary, now instead he projects illusions from your memories of things you're insecure about and I guess feeds on your fear, but not right away. He captures you and webs you up in his cave until he's ready to feed, which I guess takes freaking forever because of what happens later. Aang finds out about this, and he's like, oh, well, I need to find out how to defeat Ko the Face Stealer. Apparently Avatar Roku did something to him, so I need to ask Avatar Roku. And because of the dumb rule that this show has established, that Aang can't just talk to the other avatars whenever he wants, he now has to go all the way to one of Roku's shrines in the Fire Nation and ask him there. That's so dumb. The avatars are in you. You can talk to them at any time. There was an easy fix. You could have just said it's easier to commune with the avatars at their shrines, and he just needs to get better about communing with them in himself. But even so, in that moment in the spirit world, he should have just talked to Roku right away. Or, you know what? None of that shit should have happened, because because I don't like how much they changed Ko the Face Stealer. Just you make up a new spirit, make up a spirit of fear or a spirit of insecurity or both, and have them be trying to feed on like Sokka and Katara. Why do you have to change Ko so much? I feel like they wanted to include Ko because they know the fandom loves Ko so much, but they didn't want to include him in the same way for the moon spirit later, like the reveal of where it is. So they decided, all right, we need to inject him into the forest spirit episode, and in order to make that work, we're gonna have to completely change his lore. It's like, you didn't have to do that. There's a million ways around that. So Aang flies all the way to the Fire Nation, has a full conversation with Roku. Then, on the way back, he gets captured by the bounty hunter, who is sadly kind of underused. I loved her look and everything. But he gets captured by the bounty hunter, and then he gets taken. It's the next day. He gets taken by Zuko and Iroh, and then he gets taken by Zhao and put in another fortress over another night, and then he gets rescued by the Blue Spirit, and then he goes back. It's like 3 days later, and Ko still hasn't eaten anybody. This is so dumb. And the worst part of it all is he never helps the forest spirit. He just forgets about him. He just ignores him. You came here to fix the problem with the forest spirit, and then you just didn't do it. Did you forget? The land is still cursed. Yeah, you brought the prisoners back to the town. That's wonderful. But guess what? The land is still poisoned and cursed. People still aren't going to be able to eat or drink. They're still going to have to go out on an expedition and probably just get captured by Ko again. You forgot to fix the problem. So yeah, I hated that. That was stupid. Like a bunch of Lauren characters I really like. They tried to mix it all together, and again, I thought they mixed the Omashu stuff with everything well, but I did not think this one worked. This was not good. This was a problem. I'll just mention some little things I liked about it, though. I really liked that we got a nod to the Mother of Faces. A lot of you might not know who that is because she wasn't in the cartoon. She's in the comics, and yes, she is Ko's mother in the comics. So I thought it was cool to see her. When Roku told Aang, hey, it's not safe to have close friends in this line of work, it can be your downfall, I was like, oh, he's talking about because he and Sozin used to be best friends. I was like, that's cool. Like, I felt like they were building towards, when they're going to show that later. That felt like a very for the fans moment, or just a foreshadowing moment for people who don't know yet. So that was kind of cool. I loved when Aang turned into Kyoshi and fought off the attack on Kyoshi Island. I thought that was really epic. So when he went to Roku, I thought he was going to turn into Roku because he specifically said, I have to be at their shrines to turn into them. And he does turn into Roku at one point in the cartoon, so I thought they were going to do that here, but they don't. So that was kind of... I was like, I guess you're just not going to do that. Bounty Hunter would have been no match for you if you turned into Roku. What's the water avatar's name? Was it Kuru or Kuku? I'm sorry, I'm just going to say the water avatar. One thing I liked was when they we feel weird about this avatar because he ignored his duties here because I guess he was too fascinated with the spirit world. And then the avatar reveals later, we were about to be invaded by the spirit world. I was fighting them off to keep the world safe. I'm like, that's a really interesting, thing about how we don't know what someone is going through or what someone is doing for us, and we just make assumptions about them. That's a kind of thing that holds up really well to this day. Honestly. I was disappointed we didn't get the Agni Kai between Zuko and Zhao. That was actually one of my favorite moments in the cartoon when Zuko defeats Zhao, and then what Iroh says afterwards. We didn't get that, but I get why we didn't get that, because they wanted Zuko to have a final showdown with Zhao at the Northern Water Tribe, and I guess that's fitting. Zhao is pretty much Zuko's rival throughout the first season, and they wanted Zuko to be able to have a badass final moment. Okay, I get it. I still like the way it was done in the cartoon better, but everything's better in the cartoon, so what's even the point in bringing that stuff up? I think there was something else I wanted to mention. Oh, yeah. I didn't really... Here's one thing I found weird. Aang and goes all the way to the Northern Water Tribe. I know he's also going there to prevent its downfall, but one of the main reasons he's going there is to learn waterbending, and he never learns waterbending while he's there. That was really weird to me. And then it ended up like the master there just said, well, Katara will teach you. He could not ask for a better master. And it's like, look, Katara is great. She is, but like, I think she could learn a lot from a master too, as could Aang. You should all three, he should train both of you. That's what happened in the cartoon. Like, just do that. You didn't have to... Here's the problem. You didn't have to end episode 7 with the soot falling already and being like, the firebenders are here. You could have just ended episode 7 with the master agreeing to train them, and you could have picked up episode 8 saying some time has passed, and now they've both learned a lot. Like, I think that would have been really, really fitting. And, some people are like, well, how would, with the way this is written, how would they even convince him? Because he's not convinced right away even that Katara should fight. You could have very easily just had a moment where Aang says, if you want the honor of training the Avatar, you have to train her too. It's a package deal. And, that could have been it. That's all you had to do. But, so clearly there are problems with the show. So that's why I get it. I get why most people don't like it. But overall, I still had a lot of fun watching it. And again, this show made me so much more mad at the Percy Jackson show, and I'll tell you the main reason why. This show and Percy Jackson have the exact same budget per episode. 15 mil per episode, 8 episodes, both shows, and they both have child actors. Yet somehow, magically, this show has a bigger main cast, which means they're paying more people. The episodes are twice as long, and also have way more action and way more CGI, including CGI monsters. So Percy Jackson has no excuse. Okay? I'm sick and tired of everyone saying, money isn't what it used to be, they couldn't afford it. No, here, perfect example, this came out later than Percy Jackson, which means inflation is worse, and yet it has so much more money on the screen than Percy Jackson does. So no more excuses about that. I'm sick and tired of that argument. Oh, I forgot to mention, sorry. My favorite change in this entire remake was the reveal with the 41st Division. If you don't know, in the cartoon, the reason Zuko was banished was because he heard that one of the generals wanted to sacrifice a division of new recruits of firebenders in order to try to win a battle, and Zuko said, you can't do that, their lives matter, and that's what led to the Agni Kai, which led to Zuko's banishment. In this remake, they actually expand on that, showing how much Zuko's father thinks his compassion is a weakness, and how we need to sacrifice the weak, and Zuko holds strong to what he believes. Even after his father burns his eye, he doesn't want to sacrifice those new recruits. And so his father says, fine, then those recruits will be your crew. You get to deal with them. And that amazing reveal, to the crew as well, that Zuko saved all of their lives and sacrificed everything he had to do it, I actually thought was amazing. I thought that was one thing, probably the only thing, but one thing that this series did better than the cartoon. And it's not even, I don't think better is even the right word, because it's not like this scene was in the cartoon inferiorly, but this is something that was added in that just, I loved the hell out of it. And I liked how from that point on it felt like G was more loyal to Zuko, which really makes me wonder if he's going to show up in the season 2 or whatnot. But I loved that scene. I thought that was wonderful. I just can you tell me what you guys thought about it? Did you not like that scene, or do you feel how I did? That was truly my favorite part of the whole season. Just fantastic. I liked it more than the attack on the Southern Air Temple, though that's my second favorite part. So yeah, little moments like that make me kind of glad that this series exists. But yeah, I hope you guys get what I'm saying. Again, I'd love to hear from you all down below. I enjoyed this more than Percy Jackson. I think I've made that incredibly obvious. There are definitely problems with the show. I'd like to see them improved on in season 2. I never expected it to be just like the cartoon. I wanted it to do something a little different, and I was relieved that it did. So I had more fun with it than most people did, I think. And hopefully I'll have that Percy Jackson review out for you guys soon. Some people have asked if I'm going to talk about Shogun or Crapopolis. I will. I'm just going to wait for those seasons to finish. So when Shogun season 1 finishes, I'll talk about it. I've been waiting months for Crapopolis season 1 to finish, but that show's got a lot of episodes, so still not done with that, so I'll talk about that when that's done too. And hopefully you'll enjoy that. I don't know how to end videos.